People always say that, hey, why Malaysians don't read? Malaysians like to, watch video and things like that. But perhaps if reading is made more accessible, this book can also be sort of like a giant name card wherever they go. So when they conduct like workshops, they like to have a book to go together with them because it really increases that kind of credibility. People will be more attracted to like, oh, I like the conversation that you had in the podcast. Maybe I should go and check out your book.
Hello listeners, welcome to the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon podcast where we talk to business leaders in Asia. So today we have someone who has helped a lot of business leaders and a lot of people as well to publish books. So we have Nickey Teoh, and fun fact, right? Nickey Teoh is actually from my same university. He's from UTM and we go way back to when I in my university days. I know him as a senior when I was in university. So he is the founder of Inspiration Hub. So a bit about Inspiration Hub as well. It's a book publishing company in Malaysia that helps professional and aspiring authors to self-publish their books from design, editing to printing. We want to ensure the books produced are of high quality. Nickey, welcome to the show.
All right, so good to be here. Thank you, Bob, for inviting.
Yeah, so yeah, as I said, he's from our UTM days, and we have a lot of mutual friends, and still keep in touch with a lot of our mutual friends as well from UTM. I had a previous guest who was from UTM, but he's the first one that we were sort of in university at the same time, sort of like his final year, my first year, sort of thing. So yeah, you started off in last time. I remember you were civil engineer, right?
That's right.
Civil engineer, and after that, now you're in author in publishing, right? So how do you get from being a civil engineer until today as publishing?
Okay. Thanks for asking that question. Actually, it's a very interesting origin story. So basically, what happens is that many of us, we got into local government universities. We are actually offered the education choices. Sometimes it's just offered to us, and I was offered civil engineering. Even though it may not be my main interest, my main pick is computer science, number one, but I didn't get that. I got civil engineering, which is surprisingly 7th choice out of all the lists. It was my 7th choice.
Mine is 3rd choice.
3rd choice. Okay, you have it better than me. Yeah. So what happened is that, if you're offered that, you just kind of like need to study and you just need to graduate a paper. After all, you need to come out with a degree, right? So towards the very end of my semester, my 5-year course, I kind of like had a little bit of a existential crisis. I'm thinking like, should I continue on in the engineering line, which I am probably not so interested, or should I switch into a line related to book writing and book publishing, which my heart is more aligned to? So you see, there lies that dilemma, crossroads. Like, what should I do? Am I going to waste my entire 5-year degree if I do that? So these thoughts keep popping up in my mind. So after I graduated, I decided that, all right, fine, probably give engineering a try for a while. So I worked as a civil engineer for a few months. And after that, I realized that, no, this is definitely not the path that I want to walk. So I thought a very long time, and finally I decided that, okay, I will make a switch. I will make a switch into a publishing line, starting off at the lowest position as an editor. I was thinking to myself, other people may have background in publishing or may have something they can bring in, but what can I bring in? I can only bring in my proficiency in English language. So that's why I started off as a low-ranking English editor in a textbook company, and took a lot of step of faith to do it because my parents were probably like, "Are you sure you want to do that? You're going to like waste your entire 5 years degree, you know?" But I was thinking to myself, isn't it better than wasting my entire life doing something that the interest just simply cannot be aligned with? Yeah, so I took that leap of faith and I started off as an editor. To cut the story short, the publishing company didn't last long because they, after 1 year, we kind of like had a layoff, and all of us, we have to start looking for new jobs again. Okay, so the next few jobs that I jumped is still related to writing and publishing line, but kind of like job hopping around. I went into, after that I was in the advertising lines, as a copywriter. So because I was thinking like, okay, since it's still related to writing, why not? So I went in there. But after working there for around half a year, I got an offer to work with a friend who is running a business, and he needed somebody to assist him in the book publishing. So that's where my publishing skill set actually came into play. So I joined him for probably like almost 2 years. Then when the time is right, I kind of like felt like, maybe I should just step out and just run this on my own. So in 2010, I step out and I form Inspiration Hub to kind of like offer publishing services to authors who need it. Because during those days, I know that there are some of them who, there are authors or there are people who wants to publish books, but they don't really have any channel to go to. So they either look for international company that charge them expensive USD just to publish the book, or they look to traditional publishers. But traditional publishers are more interested in publishing their own titles. They are not, if let's say certain authors approach them and they are not interested, then there is just no channels to go to. So that's basically how the story started.
Wow. Yeah, I remember so you were in the civil engineering faculty, I remember.
Yeah, that's right.
In UTM. And I remember you had blonde hair, all those phases. All those phases, maybe if I pull out a photo, I will put it in.
Those young and crazy days,
Yeah. And I remember you used to drive like a Saga at that time.
Yeah, we had Proton Vira, man.
Proton Vira, yes.
Humble days.
Humble days. So like maybe I will also ask a fun question during the interview.
Yeah, sure.
So fun fact is that Nickey is from Klang, actually. So
Yeah.
he came all the way from Klang today. So maybe we all know Klang for bak kut teh, we all know Klang for seafood. Like maybe if you were to pick something like a food or something, a lesser known fact about Klang,
what would it be?
Yeah, what would it be?
You see, this is always a tricky question. I know good food in PJ. But I'm not so familiar with what good food in Klang. I mean, I leave it to my friends who come to Klang and tell me, hey, we want to go and check out this place. Can you bring us? Okay, but speaking of bak kut teh, definitely that's the famous delicacy that if you want to come and check out Klang, I mean, for non-Muslims, definitely that's the food I'll bring you to. But other than that, seafood is nice. If you go to the Esplanade area, Klang is famous for the seafood. So those are some of the famous ones I can tell you. For people seeking out tourist-friendly kind of a food.
Personally, where were you in Klang?
Klang is a lot of nice foods. If you ask me, I eat a very variety of food like mamak. Klang mamak food is very nice. We have Malay food there, which is very nice as well. So if you ask me, I technically mix Chinese, Malay, Indian. Me and my wife, we bring our kids. There is not a day in a single week that we eat the same food. We kind of like always try to mix it up with like different ethnicity, food of ethnicity.
Yeah. I heard Klang has very good Indian food, just that it's not popular. Yeah, so it's nasi kanda, Indian food.
Nasi kanda is nice. Banana leaf there is nice.
Oh.
Mama also is nice. We got like mamas like. Am I supposed to mention?
Yeah, you can. We mentioned a lot of brands already.
Yeah, one of the famous mama in Klang is Uncle Raju. Sometimes we go there, we have people lining up just to enter mama. I'm like thinking like, why do you need to line up just to enter mama? But well, it happens in the Klang mama. Yeah, so that's one of those scenarios.
Yeah, okay. So I definitely, next time I will go to Klang. I don't just eat bak kut teh. I will go for the banana leaf. I believe banana leaf is good.
Yeah, it's nice. Come and have a look, man. There's a lot of things to explore in Klang. Hidden treasures.
So yeah, you share with us your story on how you started Inspiration Hub. So like when you started, you sort of started a new company. I remember, shout out as well, you were working for one of our friends called David and Cafe David that time,
That's
blog,
right.
everything. And then when you started out on your own, how do you get your first 5 authors to work with you?
Okay, that's a very interesting question and kind of like required me to visit back some memory trips. Okay, so in the beginning of the time, the first year, I had one of my church leader who also told me that if the first 2 years you don't really make a lot of money, it's okay. And he also told me that if you feel like want to die sometimes, it's totally okay as well. He quote something to me that is very there's something that I remember until today. He says, if you can be faithful with the little, more will be entrusted to you.
Okay.
So during the first year when revenue is not a lot and you're still trying to build the awareness of your brand, I cling on to this quote, like my life verse, like, okay, it's okay. Even if little is given to you, be faithful with it, then more will be entrusted to you. So during the early days when I have totally no client portfolio yet, so sometimes I will just call up clients and I'll tell them that, okay, this is what I can offer to you. Would you like to give it a try? Like, let's say I do a copywriting for your website, or I do some editing.
You call them?
I have some contacts. I actually text them lah. I don't really cold call them, but I text them and ask whether would you like to have me like do this particular service, and I'll charge like super ridiculous low cheap price. That in the market rate is like they will tell me like, wow, so cheap okay, good. I want you to do it. So that's kind of like one of the first few ways to gather the portfolio. Even the first few authors that came in, when they engage our publishing services, I give them the publishing services super ridiculous, reasonably low price. This like they cannot find it anywhere, not even today. Yeah, so I even sometimes pay my designers more, even if I take the small cut, it's okay. During those days, because I felt that it is essential to get a name out there and to gather some portfolio. So after doing that for the first 2 years, I kind of like get a bit more confident in, okay, I think I cannot continue at this kind of a low price. So it's time to maybe up the price a little bit to be a little bit more market, kind of a like market price. So that's when we kind of like build the business into a more sustainable kind of a form. Yeah. By pricing it to a more market price kind of level.
Hey everyone, producer Elton here. We share stories from business leaders in Asia, and if this video brought you any value, hit the subscribe button down below, like and share with your friends. Thank you.
So your first 5 authors came from referrals? That's your core messaging and referrals?
Okay. So the earlier days, I do have referrals, but referrals can be maybe because not many people know you yet, so sometimes referrals can be slow. In the early days, I do rely a lot on Google advertising. So I throw in a certain amount of fee to advertise, and I look at it as like I trade a certain few hundred ringgit, let's say I throw in for the advertising fee, to get back a certain amount of client fee that they're going to pay us. So to me, I would say that that's a kind of like a good exchange. Yeah, advertise on Google Ads, and then get some clients who found you on the website. I do have a website as well. So my website is just a very simple landing page, like saying that, hey, are you interested in publishing a book? And these are the services we can offer. Contact us or email us, something like that. Yeah, very simple. Humble beginning days.
I still remember visiting your office in Subang. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Bob came to you came to visit me during one of our earlier days, and that time I was renting a very small office up on the mechanic shop. Can you imagine downstairs? It's a mechanic shop. It's very noisy because they are like always fixing cars and all the engine sound. But there upstairs is my humble office in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, speaking about Google Ads, I'm a strong believer if your business can do Google Ads, you can. So I was just talking to Nickey yesterday. I said, okay, why don't you attend events, etc. I understand why you do Google Ads is because as a marketer, I always say Google Ads, you have that intent. So if you search for book publishing, for self-publishing, whatever you search for, you already have that intent. You already want to do something, right? So if they visit your website and whatever they sign up for, at least you know they want something. Where if you meet someone at an event or you do social media even, they doesn't mean they have their intent yet. But that's why Google Ads, if clients can afford to do it and if their business can do it, I always advise them to do it. And today you still do Google Ads, am I right?
I'm still running it. It's still bringing some clients from there. Yes.
Yeah. I would say, right, not even that, right? I would say, if you can dominate a keyword, turn it up. I always I used to run Google advertising for an academy, and one of the key metrics I like to look at was the search share. The search share, I think it's called something, right? So how many % are you dominating in that search? So for example, you can see Malaysia, right? search volume something lah. So you can see like when they search this keyword, how many percent of the time you come out. So I try to make it 80-90%. So but of course comes with more money as well. But
Understand.
among all the advertising, I would say it gives you the best experience of leads.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, correct. The reason being is because if you target somebody with a search intent, I believe that you are already okay. Marketing terms, you got this middle of funnel,
Middle funnel,
and the
bottom
low
funnel.
bottom funnel. They're very close to there already because they are not so much into like, well, I'm just checking out what I'm supposed to do, and they are not in the awareness stage, but they are already like quite serious in terms of what they want to do. So it makes it easier to kind of like close the sales if they are ready to move on to the next step.
Yeah. So there's that definitely. I would say, okay, maybe this is a caveat. So I also work with different businesses. Your business needs to have search volume in the first place.
Yeah.
Your business nobody search for one, then a bit hard to do. But publishing is something that people do search for how to publish a book.
Yeah.
So when it comes to Inspiration Hub, you help people to get from the first draft, all the way to the finished product. So what is the process like when it comes to that?
Okay. So Inspiration Hub site, we basically can help clients from the beginning until the end. So it can be from the manuscript writing stage to the editing and to the book design. Book design meaning that cover design, layout design, and all the way to printing, and sometimes even all the way to liaising with bookstores. We also do ebook formatting to be put on ebook platforms like Amazon, Apple Books, Kobo, Google Play. But the thing that we offer to our clients is very pick and select kind of a basis. So which means that on their end, they can we kind of like allow them to a la carte us, order us in the a la carte kind of a way. Sometimes they may go for the full package. Sometimes they may only go for the design package, for example. But if they already have certain people helping them out on certain areas, it's totally okay. That means we say, go with your people. If you're comfortable working with certain, let's say like designers or editors on your own, or if let's say they themselves, they are very good designers or they are doing their own editing, for example, it's totally okay to DIY. But for whatever areas that they need us to help, then we allow them to pick and select. Then we find the right people to just come in to help push them through that, through to the next phase. So that's basically how it works. So in terms of publishing rights, all this kind of thing, for most self-published authors, publishing rights still belongs to them because most of the publishing and production costs come from their own pockets. So they get to keep their own publishing right. We are...
What is a publishing right?
Publishing rights means that who holds the decision making to publish your books. So let's say if your book is doing well, for example, and you want to reprint for a second print, for example. So the decision to reprint, who holds it? If you go to a traditional publisher, they buy over your publishing rights. They hold the final decision to reprint the books because they are the one that have to come out the cost, the printing cost, all those. Whereas if you're a self-published author, you are the boss. You get to decide whether you want to reprint it, you don't want to reprint it, you want to come out with a second book. Everything is totally up to you. Sort of like putting you in the position of a publisher because you're now, instead of letting another traditional publisher to dictate what can be done or cannot be done, you are in control of the entire process. Yeah.
And we had one of our previous guests, Siva, who we also helped to, I would say, get his book into the bookstores. So can you share more about the launch side of the books as well?
Yeah. Okay. So I was working with Siva. Siva approached to ask if, let's say, his books can be put into the bookstores. So kind of like during that period, we were in the middle of arranging with Borders. Of course, Borders now is already no longer in play. So we liaised with the manager from the Borders, Jem, a good friend, and then she was She was kind of like essential in helping us to get the books up on the bookshelves in bookstores. So that time, I remember Siva told me that, hey, Nickey, I'm so proud. I just want to take a picture of my book in a bookstore bookshelf, which is in Borders, and then just want to show it to my kids that, so proud that the book is up on the bookstore. So those are some of the processes that are involved. We basically liaise with distributors and also bookstores to kind of like get into the bookstores. But having said that, sometimes it can be tricky because sometimes bookstores or distributor may not always pick all books. They may pick books which they felt has more selling potential or more marketing potential. So that means if your topic is in a more like especially more Malaysians, they like to read books that, hey, how to make more money, how to be successful in business, how to be successful in career, something that helps them to be, makes a lot of money. Usually those books will be naturally in demand. And of course, there are other books which are, depends, like fiction, memoir, poetry books, will be subject to whether bookstores are willing to give it a go to sell all these books. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And you also help them with the launch of the launch event of the books as well.
Yeah, okay, correct. Okay, so when it comes to author launch event, usually we give authors few choices, whether they want to do it as a private launch or whether they want to leverage on the bookstore, kind of like liaise with the bookstores to do a launch event at the bookstore. So we had done launch event in Borders, Elite we have done before, MPH also, Popular also. So what happened is if we want to get certain books into the bookstore, we would have to approach, of course, the distributor to help us out and also the marketing department of the bookstores to kind of like pitch the book to them to see if they are interested to pick up this title as an event that may probably like draw in a crowd. But of course, having said that, sometimes bookstores may prefer that the authors bring in their own crowds to support the events. Because bookstores, they will allow you to use a space. And of course, sometimes they may have customers like bypassers or just walking customers who may just happen to just join in, but they would prefer that if you can bring in your own crowd of like maybe 20 or 30 people to just support the event, then that would be an ideal case. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So like one of our previous guests, Frida Liu, I think you helped her with one of her book events as well.
Yeah. Okay. So last year we kind of like launched a title that featured 6 women authors in Borders, and it got into the Borders bestselling for March. Yeah. So those are some of the events that we try to launch and try to, if let's say if they're interested, to see whether they want to hit the bestselling or not. Some authors, if let's say we work with authors who are ambitious, they want to hit the bestselling, then we can go for that. Of course, some authors would love it as more like just kind of like they want to be more private, just among family and friends. Hitting bestselling may not be in their intention. That's totally fine as well, because we understand that everybody publishes book for their own different objectives and goals. Yeah.
So you work with a lot of self-publishers and you've done this for many years now.
Yeah.
So what are the things that they need to look out for if they want to self-publish a book?
Okay. Usually, most self-published authors, many self-published authors that I work with come from the business background. That means they are running like a business consultancy on their own expertise niche, I would say. Can be a lot of things, can be property investment, can be financial investment, can be leadership and coaching, and many other things. So for them, what they want to do is they want to pen down all their knowledge and expertise into a book. Can also be sort of like a giant name card wherever they go. So when they conduct like workshops, or when they conduct like coaching sessions or client sessions, sometimes this book can go either as a free add-on to the package, or maybe they can sell the book as an add-on together with their workshop, for example. So these are some of the things they do. And I know that for a lot of coaches or professional speakers, they like to have a book to go together with them because it really increases that kind of credibility and a reputation in the industry. So that's what they're doing. Sorry, does that answer your question?
So like what are the things they need to look out for?
Or what are the things they have to look out for? Okay. In terms of like what? Writing the process? Marketing side?
It's marketing side, whether it's writing, the amount of work it needs to put into it, any pitfalls they need to look out for.
Okay. I believe that writing and publishing side is only half the battle won. So that means even if you finish your manuscript, it's not the end of the battle yet. I think the second half of the battle is where maybe some authors may find, some self-published authors may find it a bit struggle because maybe marketing is not their savvy niche. I mean, skill sets. For them, they like to write. That means passion is their writing. They like to share things. They like to, they don't mind to write, to share their knowledge. But after that, when you ask them that, how about let's take this book and turn it into a more like a publicity kind of a thing. Let's go do events. Let's get interviews with, let's say, like radio, podcasts, or media publications and things like that. So that's when sometimes they felt that this is totally not our area. Can we like, they feel very shy about it. So because they think probably like we don't really like to do all this kind of a self-promotion thing. Maybe other people promote us is okay, but we don't really like to self-promote too much. So some maybe shyer writers or authors may struggle with that. But of course, those who are in the business line where selling comes natural to them, so they just kind of like promote the book as part of their extension of themselves. I would say that people who are in the business line, usually they are okay. They are okay to just like whenever they go network and things like that.
And when they speak.
When they speak, the book just comes as a natural extension of who they are. Yeah. So, I would say that maybe the challenge would be more on the marketing sides because I would say it's, some authors would probably think that marketing is a one-time off event. Launch it and after that, famous forever. I want to say, so sad. It is not. Marketing is I would say like a constant effort. And sometimes it's not about like, hey, everybody look at me, I have this book. But it's more about like, how do you find ways to add value to whichever community you're visiting or whichever target market that you are trying to reach out to, how to find ways to add value to them without appearing too hard sell, I would say. Yeah, so those are kind of like different kind of a skill set to play into. Yeah.
Side question, right?
Yeah.
Two of my favorite authors, and I've read multiple of their books, but it's in the US lah. Ryan Holiday is the best book marketer out there.
Yeah.
Like people already buy his book, even the book haven't come out. But he's a marketer in heart. Tim Ferriss also like, oh, you sign up for buy my book before. And Tim Ferriss has a huge podcast audience.
Yeah.
Right. So like, what do you think about their marketing? Like, do you advise authors to do the same or
yeah,
what?
okay. I love what Tim Ferriss and Ryan Holiday is doing. Okay, Ryan Holiday, in fact, you say that before his book is even out, people already want to buy. I'm one of those people because I subscribe to his waiting list on Amazon. So anytime he release a book, I will get a notification on it. I like Ryan Holiday's work because he's a thinker.
Yes.
And he put a lot of thoughts into how he into the points that he wants to present. So maybe to some of my, let's say some of the authors who are a bit more shy in terms of, how to say, like, they think that marketing is self-promoting all the time. I want to say that perhaps they can look into how Ryan Holiday does it, how he uses Instagram or he uses blog posts or interviews to kind of like share points which are thoughtful. Because what some of the, I want to say, let's say writers or authors who are a bit more introvert, who are a bit more thinkers, they have the strength. Because their strength is to see things from different perspectives and to present it in a way that readers find it easy to understand. So if let's say they use, let's say Facebook or Instagram or any platform or even LinkedIn to share their insights on certain things, people actually love to read what is written because people find like, hey, I never see it that way. But so writers and authors who are more, let's say like introverted thinkers, they put something out that people never, different perspective that people never thought about. So that's their strength that they bring to the table. So perhaps they may think that for them, they don't have to self-promote too much, but maybe if they just share what is inside their head, their knowledge, their insights, people love to read these kind of things. Yeah.
What is your take on, so Ryan Holiday, like you said, one of the things I learned from him is to grow the email list. And that's why Elton, my producer here, manages my email list. The email list is like everything. So like, how do you get your authors to create their email list, or what do you think about using email?
Okay. email list is a very proven, effective way to build like a follower base because you get to keep the list. Unlike sometimes social media like Facebook, sometimes they force you to pay to play. Even you may have, let's say like, I don't know, a few thousand followers, but when you put up a post, how many people actually get to see that? Probably maybe less than 10%. So we do realize that unless you kind of like encourage people to just like engage on your posts, then it kicks in the algorithm, then maybe the post starts to show up a little bit more. But otherwise, I think email list is quite effective. But many authors, if you ask me, what I observe is that they still rely more on social media because email list may require a little bit of technical setup to know how to set up. I'm not sure. Maybe for you,
Elton, this is the way.
maybe for your it comes natural for your because
Okay, it's not hard. It's not hard.
it's not that difficult. It's just
Yeah.
a little bit of setup. Maybe using services like
MailChimp,
MailChimp, ConvertKit, or something like that.
And it's free. In most email software services are free until you hit 1,000.
yeah, correct,
It's
correct.
based on the size of your audience also.
Exactly. And there needs to be like I would say like a landing page where you have an opt-in form for people to like sign in. So it is very funny because I don't hear a lot of my authors talking about it, but they are more into like, oh, let's build our followers on social media platform like Instagram and Facebook or even LinkedIn. So that seems to be the trend based on my conversation with them.
Okay.
They are more into social media, but nevertheless, like what you say, email list is definitely like a hidden gold mine. If you can tap it, it is very effective.
Okay, this is something I want to pitch, and I'm not ashamed to say about this.
Sure.
So that's why I want to collaborate with Nickey on this as well. So what do you think of authors getting on podcasts like us? So we had Siva. Actually, Siva, when I had him on, we talked about three of his books.
Yeah.
Our recent episode with Dato' Jake Abdullah, we talked about his book of Jake, hashtag I showed you the episode also. So what do you think of authors getting on podcasts to share about their books?
I think it's a great idea. Okay, reason being is because sometimes books, to get somebody to check out an author's books, you would need to let them know what a book is all about. But a podcast allows you to witness what the author has in mind. Let's say life experience, knowledge, and things like that. In a more natural conversation kind of way. I would say that it's more accessible. So you can just turn on a podcast and just listen to it. Of course, probably they can just let it run in the background for like 20 to 30 minutes when you're driving and things like that. I would say that it's a very good sneak peek invitation into what the author offers in his book. So if you, let's say like, sometimes when you ask questions in the interview podcast, and then the author shares his knowledge, his life experience, and then of course, at the end of the day, he will be like, so if you want to know more about what is going on, more deeper, more in depth, check out my book. Everything's over there. So people will be more enticed. People will be more attracted to like, oh, I like the conversation that you had in the podcast. Maybe I should go and check out your book.
I cannot tell you, I cannot count how many times I've bought a book because it was shared on the podcast, including Ryan Holiday, including Robert Greene, right? So including Tim Ferriss. So recently we were talking about Noah Kagan launching his book, $1 Million Weekend, I believe is the book. He went on a podcast run. Everyone's podcast he was on, from Australia, US, UK, everyone. $1 Million Weekend. So like even Ryan Holiday, before he launched, he will be on a podcast run. Good example is Robert Greene. Robert Greene is not the most extroverted person. It's not like a speaker, not a salesy. His books are very well thought of. He does a lot of research, very good lessons, like historical research in his book. So when he goes on a podcast, he tells these stories and say, okay, you want to learn more? Buy the book. So I've bought so many Robert Greene books from podcasts myself. And yeah, it's a very powerful tool to feature your book. And for someone to buy a book, they need to love you as a person. Yeah. And that's where the podcast come in. They know how you talk, they know your thought process. Yeah. And then they will get your book as well.
Yeah, exactly. To add on to what you say, so like Robert Greene, he basically writes about like laws of power and things. Even sometimes if he may not appear in person, let's say on Instagram or anything like that, even sometimes I see people sharing his quotes everywhere on Instagram. And then, okay, Robert Greene. But having said that, I will say that in terms of marketing, podcasting and doing all these live events is like what your marketers will say, top of the funnel kind of a thing. It's a awareness building, because sometimes people may not really know what is in a book. Of course, they will check out like, oh, you got a book, also the cover and things like that. But there is a lot of process involved to actually get to that part where, okay, I want to check out this book. And even sometimes if they were to go to bookstores, what are the first things that people check when they go to bookstores? Oh, I want to see this bookstore's top 10 list. And if let's say certain book is hidden in a corner of a category, let's say like self-help, and then, okay, so we go to self-help, and then if let's say the book is hidden among many hundred titles over there, and what are the chances that that suddenly just random, okay, I'm going to scroll through the book, I'm going to suddenly, oh, interesting book, but there are hundreds of titles there as well. So the question is how to stand out. And I think being on a podcast allows the content to be shared easily. People have mobile nowadays, they can just watch it on YouTube or even listen on Spotify. Anywhere they are, wherever they go, they don't need to be, it sometimes can be even also like effective compared to like just bookstore launch, because bookstore launch, you do it one time event, 20, 30 people attended and that's it, finished. Nobody knows what happened during the event. But if you manage to capture it in a, let's say like audio or a video format that is forever on the platform, then people can just, even many months down the road, somebody can just stumble upon your content and there is no expiry date to it. So 1 year down the road, somebody stumbled upon the content, they love what you share to them and they felt that, wow, it's relevant to me. So, so there is no expiry date to it. I would say.
like you said, stumble upon, right? It's because when it comes to podcasts, especially when we put it on YouTube, there is like you said, the Google Ads, right?
Yeah.
So when you put it on YouTube, it's sort of like Google Ads. You search for it. Let's say you search for Siva, you search for Sheikh Abdullah. Now our video, our podcast will come out as the top results. So YouTube is owned by Google.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when you search for someone's name, and this happened with a lot of my guests as well, our podcast comes up first. So you get to know the person as well. And I think another thing is, for example, Noah Kagan, I said he went on a podcast run. Every single business entrepreneurship podcast he was on, you tap into their audience. Their podcast, like for us, we are building now to 1,000 subscribers as we speak. We blood, sweat and tears built there. And then you just come on, you can speak to 1,000 people.
Exactly.
So it's a sort of win-win as well. The podcast hosts get to create content and then you get to tap into the audience. And like you say, it's forever. So if your book is evergreen, it'll be there and then people can buy the book.
Yeah, exactly.
can buy the book as well. So speaking about podcasting, the next question I have for you is the future, right? So book writing, publishing is evolving into digital platforms. You know, we have audiobooks, things like that. And of course, the bookstore scene. Before we started our podcast today, we talked about the bookstore scene. Like some bookstores, unfortunately, are not around anymore. Some bookstores are thriving. So what do you see is the future of this industry?
Okay, there will always be, I believe bookstores will be around to stay. Bookstores that can, let's say, like stay relevant and connect to a modern audience. They'll be around to stay. Of course, all of us, we have our favorite bookstores. So it's subjective to your preference lah. Which bookstore? Of course, we have the major bookstores like Book Access, we got MPH, Popular, Kinokuniya, Elite Sutaya, and probably there are some smaller bookstores as well. So I believe they'll be around to stay. But of course, we are not overlooking the digital platform as well. Also, because bookstores, in order to find out books, you have to be there must be an attracting reason for you to run to the bookstore and check out the books there. But what if we bring the books to people's phone, right? So because people are already spending a lot of time on their phones, and what if they were to discover books through, like, of course, social media and a lot of other platforms? I think it would bring a different additional dimension than just purely relying on a physical bookstore for books discovery lah. So I know that one of the strengths of US authors is that of course, their books will be sold worldwide, everywhere in the bookstores or even in the physical bookstore, but they have good awareness campaign through all these social media platforms. That even Malay, we are like halfway across the world, you will know of people like Ryan Holiday, James Clear. I know a lot of people who read James Clear book on habits and things like that. So these are different ways to kind of like reach us. So I would say that digital platform plays a very important role.
Yes. So, as a company, as Inspiration Hub, so what are you excited about the future? Are you planning, besides now doing all the self-publishing, are you planning more things in the future?
Planning more things in the future.
For example, like some would like to start a book club or some will start a community. I'm not sure. Do you have any plans outside of this?
Okay. There are already some book clubs and there are already some author community groups in Facebook. There is already running ongoing. I think everything that will be okay. I'll talk about two things. I'll talk about what is already in the market, in the industry, and then I will talk about what can be explored in the future as a potential. Of course, when it comes to like author book clubs and author groups, all these things, there are already certain companies that are doing it. I have seen some in Facebook. Of course, I think every initiative that is built would need to have a business model. So of course, let's say if you're an authors group that wants to come and gather together on a non-profit basis, like just supporting each other, then time will be your resources, and hopefully out of there you can get good networks or you can get good support. And of course, there are certain paid author groups where you have a company that's managing it, and then they just organize events to get all the authors to get together. So I do know of some. So whatever it is, it must be sustainable. I will say that if let's say the company is doing it as their main business, then there must be a proper business model to it, like maybe charge a membership fee and things like that. But if there are some who are doing it on a voluntary basis, then of course your friendship and your passion is the one that's sustaining.
I know a few of them.
Exactly. So I would say that for my side, of course, currently we are focusing more on the publishing side. Even sometimes publishing activities has already taken up quite a lot of our time. So I don't think I will exploring much into any like clubs or anything like that. But if you are to ask me, I do see potential in, of course, digital platform. That means bringing an awareness of an author's book or book sharing into more online platforms, which is not so much explored or not so much tapped into yet. Yes, other industries are doing it very well, but in terms of book authors or book publishing industry sites, I feel that we are maybe still just scratching the surface only. Okay, two things. One thing is, of course, marketing. We're talking about marketing in terms of like, how can people discover your book through digital platform? Let's say like what you say, using podcasts, LinkedIn, social media. And of course, the second thing is there are, what about people who wants to read ebooks or read online instead of getting a physical book? Is that possible? So there are companies who are promoting the online reading kind of a thing. So in fact, if you look at trends in China, or let's say trends in Japan, maybe not Japan, okay, Korea, or even maybe I'll say China and Korea, there is a trend of heading towards more like web novel kind of that means everything's reading online. Web novel, webtoon, people are reading comics, people are reading novels online. If you try to download the webtoon app from the Apple App Store, you will notice that so many ratings. That means what? A lot of Malaysians are reading comics, web comics from other countries because it is so easily accessible. They just download the app and everything's over there. So as compared to, of course, your another question is, what about buying books online? Buying book online is also one of the channel, but I foresee that you see, all this book reading is a form of content, right? So sometimes people ask this question: why are videos getting more? Why do people watch videos or listen to audio more than books? Because videos and audios are more accessible. Books, you need active maybe you need to like run to the bookstore, buy the book. So there are a lot of probably steps involved to get a book. Unless it's like, oh, your really favorite author, I don't mind to brave through the jam, go to the shopping mall, park, and go into the bookstore and grab the book. But for online reading, of course, in US or in certain more advanced countries, online reading is already a trend. Maybe over here, it is still at the infancy stage. So, of course, there are certain companies that are coming to see if they can build on this industry. So I felt there is the future in that because people on their phone, and if people can access to their books and they're reading on the phones, then it can stand a chance to compete against the likes of Netflix, YouTube. People will do more reading. People always say that, hey, why Malaysians don't read? Malaysians like to, watch video and things like that. But perhaps if reading is made more accessible to the online generation, perhaps reading can come back in trend again. So that's just my prediction of the future.
Awesome. The reason why I mentioned book club is because in the business world, we always reference Reese Witherspoon's book club. I'm not sure if you're familiar. So the reason why I ask this is maybe you don't have to run it like a monthly meeting, but if you have a community of readers, book readers already, let's say 100, like say you have a Facebook group, don't have to actively run it. You have a Facebook group, you just post your favorite book. If you have a community already, when an author launches a book, you get 100 readers straight away. Do you see value in that? Like having a book club, so you can. This is a community, we can market it to this community also.
Yes, I truly see the value because I think that more Malaysians, or at least us, need to know about the value of books. Because in our, we always have this struggle with that. We say that, hey, why Malaysians don't read enough and things like that. But actually, if you look at it, it's not true. Malaysians do read a lot. All the news or news website, you go to like news website, check out political news or some entertainment news, you're reading as well. It's just that you're reading different kind of formats. But book is considered like a long form kind of format because you need to sit down and it's not exactly bite size. You need to like sit down and focus, and sometimes you cannot finish the book in one reading. You need to like probably break it down into a few days. So I think having a book club can foster that kind of like, hey, we have people who love books. Why not we check out books together? We share the books that we love. So it will create sort of like, I want to know what book are you reading? Or you want to know what book am I reading? So we share. So it's not so much like a private, hey, I just read my own book, like nobody knows what am I doing. Yeah, so it's bringing the social aspect into a very private activity, which is book reading. Yeah, so I think that's cool.
Yeah. So like Reese Witherspoon's book club is like the biggest book club, because she is a celebrity. And then what happens is like the authors share the book. She of course, there's some way help them to market because it's already the biggest book club. And then she will also get the rights to the movies. If the book does well in the book club, then she will take the rights and use the rights of the book to publish, to produce a movie for the book also. Yeah. So it's I think that's something that I plan as well for any sort of business. Is when it's not easy, don't get me wrong, it's not easy, but when you own or when you are running a community, that there is people that you can actually collaborate with to actually create opportunities for a product. So I think that there is something very powerful indeed. So I'll end with a last question. So we'll talk for more than half hour already. Really? So I will copy Tim Ferriss's question.
Okay,
so
sure.
Tim Ferriss always asks this question to all his guests. What is the one book that you would give, that you gifted the most? Yes.
You mean I'm gifted or I give
you
to
give
people?
to people? That means like this book I recommend and you give this book to people. Tim Ferriss' question. All his podcasts he asks this question. This guest.
Okay. Okay, I may not have a specific title. You're asking about what have I done in the past, or I may want to give.
You can want to give also, but let's say if there were a book you need to buy for someone, what would you give as a book?
This is a very interesting question. I've been in the publishing industry for so long. I stopped. I had so long didn't give books to people. Okay, so if you were to ask me in the past, I am a fan of books like John Maxwell, because when I grew up, I read John Maxwell books a lot that teaches about leadership. So when it comes to like birthday gifts during those days, I would like just run to the bookstore and look for one suitable John Maxwell book that I think is suitable for the person. Then I'll grab that and I'll give to that person. It can be anything, can be laws of leadership, can be talking about influence or talking about like how to, he's sort of like he has his different titles. If you ask me who are the good books nowadays, I would say like books like James Clear is quite a good book that teach about habit. I'm a fan of his blog first before I actually bought his book. So I read a lot of his articles on his website, and they are like, if you want to build a long-term success and business, I think his habit building articles are like solid. Something that I hold dear to my heart. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So if now you want to give someone, probably you give that Atomic Habits book.
I will give Atomic Habits. If not, Ryan Holiday is a good book. Has his good books like he talks about perennial bestsellers or something like that.
My favorite one, I've read some of his books. My favorite one is Ego is the Enemy.
Ego is the Enemy, and he also has the Daily Stoic.
Yes.
So he covers quite multiple topics, and he also has a Confessions of a Marketer or something like that. For one of his earlier titles that I may have read it. Ryan Holiday is a very interesting thinker. I just want to say that. I bought Robert Greene's book, but I won't give it to people. Because he's teaching about power, politics, how to manipulate situation.
Yes.
I mean, if I want to give it to people, I'll choose wisely. Okay, if you are open to reading these kind of things, then perhaps yes.
Okay, so next question is like, what is the book that impacted you the most?
What is the book that impacted me the most? Okay, of course, when I was growing up, I read John Maxwell books a lot on leadership and on self-development, personal development. Those days, we don't have much reading. Internet, there's no such thing as internet blogs. We really run to the bookstores to look for books. So a lot of John Maxwell books are my growing up books. I read them. And of course, somebody once told me before, hey, you cannot be reading so many John Maxwell books and not applying them. So, okay, I'll try to apply them. Okay, but if you ask me today, I would say that I love James Clear. I love what he wrote. In fact, sometimes if I want to look for a particular article to motivate me through some of my down moments, I will actually go to his blog and I'll search up for some right articles. And before every of his article, there is always a story that goes together with it. So I find it's very impactful. If you ask me, to me, I read jamesclear.com a lot, and I even know which article can speak to you at the different, should you need something. Yeah.
I think through this podcast, I probably will go and buy his book also from another book I bought from a podcast. Yeah, for me, right, I'm not sure if you've read any of these books, 3 books that I really love. Number 1 is Nonviolent Communication. I think it's slip my mind his name, but Nonviolent Communication is a book that really impacted me. The Third Door, Alex Benayan, is so why I'm passionate about podcasts, because Alex Benayan, The Third Door, he's writing a book of how he write a book. So it's how he interviews presidents, Warren Buffett, how he got in touch with Warren Buffett, all these people. So it's a third door. So basically, your first door is you queue up. Like going to a club, you queue up. First door, you got money, you go into a second door, VIP door. Third door is like someone inside, somehow you get inside. So that's the third door. And for me, it's a sales book. I like Pitch Anything by Oren Clough. That has really shaped how I do sales today. So like for me, I'm not sure if it's in your wheelhouse or not, these 3 books, but for me, it's like sales and things like that really, these 3 books shape how I do a lot of things today.
Interesting.
Atomic Habits is something I will check out the blog actually. Okay, my personal experience with Atomic Habits, right? When I read it, it was very detailed and I couldn't execute. Then I stopped. I have the book actually in my audio. I couldn't execute. And I stopped. So maybe I start with the blog.
Yeah, correct. I understand as well, because the book kind of like brings you to, they try to lay down the foundation of habits.
It's very
in the beginning chapters.
Tactical in a way.
Yeah,
in a way.
Correct. But if you can approach it like chapter basis, that means, okay, there is a particular chapter that stands out to you, then you read on that one. Then that's how I actually approach this blog, because I felt certain chapters speak to me at a particular situation in my life. So I only read that particular article. There are many other articles that is a bit more very in-depth explaining about habits, all those things. only get into if you want to know like deeper
Okay.
understanding.
I think maybe I'll get the text version of the book. I listen to it as audiobook, so cannot skip the chapter.
okay, no,
So I'll get the audiobook.
Cannot
I
cancel
get the book, and then I was okay. This chapter is where am I now? I go and read the chapter.
Yeah, true,
I think
true,
that is
true.
how I will approach the book now.
Yeah, correct. But if you were asking about books on selling, okay, there are a few books that I read before that kind of like helps shape me in terms of selling. I've read Brian Tracy wrote The Psychology of Selling, and it was a book I read when I was in university, even though I have not come out to the working world yet. But I thought that why not just pick up some, sales skills and things like that. And it kind of like helps because it helps you to understand. You see, many of us, we are afraid of selling because we thought that we have to be this guy who go in front and self-promote, be loud, like everybody look at me, and you try to hard sell something. But actually, the psychology of selling is about understanding the customer's needs. If you know the key to the person's heart, you can figure out a subtle way to sell the solution to them in a way that will make them say yes. So I guess that's the whole psychology of selling.
Wow, that's very classic. That's so classic. I want to shout out also the first book I ever read is because of my uncle.
Yeah.
Is How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Hey, I want to quote that book also actually. Dale Carnegie, right?
So I read that when I was 15.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
was that your first book? First few books should be 100 years old already, I think.
I was reading that book in university as well. I mean, of course, sometimes, during those days, bookstores don't have a lot of selections and they
Yeah.
always feature certain books as the bestseller,
John
classics.
Maxwell is there.
Yeah, John Maxwell is there. So Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, is also one of them. And it also shapes a lot of my thinking during the growing years because sometimes you need to be put in position of leadership. And how do you inspire and motivate people to do things together with you? We may come from background where like, hey, you are the boss, you just shout, scream instructions to people to make them follow you. But how do you make them follow you in a way that they want to follow because they want to? Yeah. So what Dale Carnegie's book teaches is how to make them like you. Like how to, instead of for example, one of the tips he shared is, instead of giving instructions to them, why not you offer suggestions? Why not you
Ask.
you ask them and then you say that you share about your own stories as well. If I have made similar mistakes to you in the past as well, but it's okay. Something like that, just to make it make it more receptive for them to accept suggestions and ideas. Yeah, something like that. So it's interesting tips.
Thank you so much. Thanks for geeking out with me on books today.
problem.
We talked so much. Before we go in, we'll shout out the venue sponsor as well. Today we are at Iconic Co-working. So fun fact, when I was interviewing Siva, the chief everything officer, Sharon, actually borrowed, it's not my book, she borrowed me Siva's books to prepare for the podcast interview. So shout out to her. And also like Nickey has been here. So this is, we are in like the training hall, right? So there's, Nickey was just waiting as well. Nickey, you were just now at the lobby and the deck, right?
Yeah.
So that's where you can do a lot of events. So if you want to do your launches or things like that, this is a place. So you can contact Iconic Co-working. It's a place to train, to work. And also if you want to build your team here, also it's a place you can rent and also house your team here. So thank you, Iconic Co-working. Thank you again, Nickey, for coming all the way here.
Yeah,
from
no
Klang.
problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Such a good conversation.